Hey, if you're looking to buy a home or you're in the process of buying a home, the home inspection is critical to understanding the condition of what you're getting ready to buy. And so with that in mind, we wanted to educate you a little bit on the home inspection process, what it looks like, what it is, what it isn't. And so we brought in local home inspection expert, William Troutman of Certainty Home Inspections. William, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for asking me, Mike. It's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So listeners that are listening to this may be thinking, why in the heck should I listen to this guy? And I want to tell them why. Let's start there. William, you've been doing home inspections in Kentuckiana for almost 2 decades. Not only are you a certified home inspector, but you're a certified SEAT continuing education inspector. You're coaching. Listen, this is the important part. He's actually coaching other inspectors locally and across the country. And if that's not enough of a reason to listen to him, I'm going to give you one more. And William, you may not know this, but you were an original member of the 812 Living Group MVP list, and you've been there 7 consecutive years.
Nice.
So this is a guy that knows his stuff, and is going to talk to us about home inspections today.
Super. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So, hey, we're going to dive into what an inspection is and what it isn't, but I want to set the tone right off the bat. Hey, give us one or two of maybe the oddest things that you've seen at a home inspection.
We run across crazy homeowner fixes all the time. Down that road, electrical stuff. Everybody thinks they're an electrician or plumber. And so just did one not too long ago. The guy takes his, this is a gas dryer now, and he takes the vent, the lint vent off of that, duct tapes it to the flame housing, the burner chamber of his water heater. And I'm sure his thought process was, hey, I'm going to transfer the heat off of this dryer, blow it into my hot water heater, and therefore save a little gas. I mean, just insane. All that moisture, humidity going into that chamber, a fire hazard to say the least, with all the lint and what have you. So that's probably the cleanest one I can talk about. If you want to, get into other things like dancing poles in the middle of the bedroom. And, I always tell real estate agents when I'm doing continuing ed that when I show up with the buyer, and a lot of times the seller doesn't know that the buyer's coming with the home inspector, typically they do, and we open up the door and it looks like a bomb went off, it's not a great surprise for that buyer. So I always say, dog feces on the floor and sex toys on the bed are not a great surprise for your potential buyer to come into. So yeah, every day is an adventure to find out what the heck are we going to see today that we haven't seen before. So.
Yeah. Well, and you do a good job of sharing some of those surprises on your social media accounts, and we'll make sure we link to those so people can go and check those out. But let's talk about the home inspection. Look, it's an opportunity for a buyer to say, hey, we've seen what we can see with our eyes, but let's have a professional come in. So just generally, what is the home inspection in regards to the real estate transaction?
So most folks don't understand, what a home inspection is. I think most home buyers, the tidbit of info that they have is coming from you, the real estate agent, and your knowledge of it. So in a lot of cases, I feel like a buyer comes into the process set up to fail. And what I mean that is unrealistic expectations of what this home inspection is all about. So we do, our company, and I teach others to do the same, what we call a driveway speech. And that's basically, we always invite the client to be there with us, of course. So when they show up, we stop whatever we're doing and meet them in the driveway or at the door and go over realistic expectations about what this is all about, because we're not a pass or fail. It's our observations on that day of the condition of the home, and that can vary by depending on the inspector you get. Because of our licensing standards, there are protocols that we are required, not required, so to do. So if you choose to follow that not required part, then you're not delivering the same as the guy that chooses to. So in a nutshell, it's an overall evaluation from rooftop down to the foundation of the visible and readily accessible areas that we can get to and see. And then again, it's our opinion of what we're finding. We have state licensing standards that we have to follow. So occupied homes can become more of a challenge because we're not allowed to move anybody's stuff. So if there's a big hole in the wall behind the couch, hey, that's something we may not pick up because we can't see those kind of things. So, but in a nutshell, again, just from rooftop to bottom within the licensing standards of practice that we have to follow, an evaluation of that home, our opinion. And to wrap this up, I always tell folks, the home inspector is not the guy you need. He's the guy you need to tell you which one of those guys you need. Do you need an electrician? Do you need a plumber? If you were to skip the home inspection and say, okay, I'm going to hire a roofer, the window guy, the drywall guy, the flooring guy, the plumber, the electric. I mean, this list would be insane. Scheduling that would be a freaking nightmare,
Right.
and the cost would be who knows what. And then all of those guys, they can work on what they inspect. As a home inspector, I can't touch anything that I inspect. So I have no reason to tell you that there's an issue if there's no conflict of interest.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm glad you mentioned pass fail. For some reason, I've been getting that more frequently than in the past, where a buyer will say, well, what if the home inspection, what if this fails the home inspection? What if this house fails the home inspection? Or what if it passes?
Right.
It's not a pass fail. And I'm glad you brought that up. It is an evaluation, and you're giving guidance or what observation of what you see.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
So bullet point it forward, as you talked about floor to ceiling, roof to foundation. Give us a kind of a bullet point of what the home inspection covers, what some of the specific systems.
Yeah, again, pretty much everything that's readily accessible. There are exclusions to it, like low voltage lighting, minor stuff like that we wouldn't mess with. Some of the stuff around the home that's not included, I'll just say, would be like awnings, screens, window screens, stuff that really doesn't have an adverse impact on the value or safety of the home. So yeah, so starting on the rooftop, if at all possible, make sure when it's a question, you should always ask your home inspector, are you going to get on the roof? That's one of those things that we're not required to do. But anytime it's safe and reasonable to get up there, of course, there's just a ton of things you can see up there that you can't see from the ground. So typically our company, the way we do it, we have a set routine that we follow that says, hey, you start at the left front of the home and here's what you do. This is the path that you follow, the same routine all the time. So again, from rooftop, from there, typically you're going to do the exterior of the home, and then you're going to get into the garage. The attic would be next. And those things like the attic, we're looking for insulation, ventilation. Are there critters living up in that attic? Is it safe to travel through? Any appliances that might be up in there, your heating system might be up there, or any kind of ventilation or whole house fan, stuff like that. So all those kind of components would be covered. From there, then typically starting on the foundation, if we're on a basement, we're going to head there, check out the structure of that home, which is critically important, of course. And then any mechanicals that might be in the basement. So your water heater, your furnace, your water softener, any of those type of things, all of your plumbing. As far as our routine goes, before we go into that basement, we get water trickling everywhere on the upper level, because while we're down there, we want to make sure, we don't have any leaks going on. And I know a lot of the inspectors that I train and deal with, they just don't think that way. They're thinking component by component and not the whole picture of the home. And, you do the basement, then you go up and start running the plumbing. Well, you're not going to know if there's a leak down there. So little things like that takes time to, get the knack for. I don't know, don't dance too far away from this, but again, set components, it is actually available for any buyer to review that. You can go to the National Association of Certified Homeowners. It's NACHI.org, and you can see that list right there of what is and is not required to be inspected. Even the things that maybe we're not required to inspect. I mean, you can't walk past something and see an obvious defect and not mention that to a buyer. They might say, hey, this won't be in your report because it's outside the scope of the inspection, but your screens are all shot,
Right. Yeah.
Those kind of things. So does that answer your question?
Yeah. Just putting some specifics to it for folks. I mean, you're going in, you're inspecting the mechanicals and all those things.
Right. I mean, structure, the facade, as a home inspector, and it's one of the things that kills me today with the market. Back when I started this in 2005, I spent 6 months or more there at Ivy Tech, did several, physical home inspections before you could get your license. And today it's pretty much all internet based. I mean, there's very little hands-on training. And I can't, even if I hire a licensed inspector, he's probably 3 to 4 months at my side before I ever turn him loose, because there's just so much. I mean, just go around the exterior, you got, your window caulking to talk about, your siding, is it fastened correct, is it installed correctly, is there ground contact? I mean, there's I can list probably a couple hundred, 200 or 300 things just on the exterior of the home that fall under my hat.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to walk right past something. And it just takes a lot of time training, hands-on, boots on the ground
Yeah.
to learn all that.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, you're getting a thorough inspection of what you're buying. I do want to touch on it real quickly. And you mentioned a couple of things sprinkled here and there, but as far as what a home inspection doesn't cover, can you touch on that?
Yeah, so let's just talk about the exterior real quick. I kind of touched on that. Anything that's attached to the home, like an awning, would not be, it needs to be permanently attached to the home. So awnings wouldn't be, I talked about your landscape lighting, low voltage stuff, your doorbell. I mean, every inspector tells you if your doorbell works or not, but it's really beyond the scope of inspection. That's not why we're there. Other things that wouldn't be vacuum systems, like a whole house vacuum system would not be part of the inspection. I talked about water softeners. You heard me mention that a minute ago, beyond the scope of a home inspection. Am I going to tell you if your water softener is leaking? Of course I am. I should. I think that's pretty much it. Now, some of the things that are not required, and this is where we get tricky about the inspector that you choose. We'll talk about that here, hopefully, as we move on. But pretty much everything within that home. Again, like I said, the screen doors aren't going to be part of that. Storm doors aren't part of that. Lighting on timers or sensors, really beyond the scope, but I'm going to tell you if it comes on or not. So it's a pretty exhaustive list of things that are in a very slim list of things that aren't.
Yeah. And touch on, I know you talk about this a lot, but things that you can't see. I mean, there's just things that you aren't able to inspect because you can't see them.
Right. And you can imagine this business carries a ton of high liability for that buyer. Again, educating them up front is the key. So, our number one source of complaints comes from homes that we inspect that are occupied, because we're limited right there. And then the client doesn't show up for the inspection and be there with us. So they have no way of knowing, hey, in that master bedroom, he couldn't hardly get around in there. When he opened up the closet, stuff started falling out. So the view of the interior of that closet was null. Now, do we note those things in the report? Of course we do. Nobody reads that stuff. We're looking for repair, replace, maintenance improvement type stuff, not limitations. So yeah, I mean, occupied homes carry a ton load more of liability. I'll give you a funny one here. So this has been last year sometime, and this crazy market we're in, people are moving fast. Right. So I do a little condo and I do the inspection and everything checked out. I didn't have a big deal. And this is not a huge deal, but the client calls me the day that they get ready to move in. They said, I want you to know that the living room is not painted. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I got pictures showing. They said, well, when you pull out the couch and the hutch and the chair, they painted around everything. Wow. So I wouldn't know that. I can't move furniture. So right. Yeah, so that's probably one of the wildest surprises on my end.
Yeah, no kidding. Well,
but,
so
again, I'll cut you off, but it's important that the inspector educates that buyer. I mean, we've got a whole list in our report called limitations, that these are things that we couldn't see, did get to, or even, what the heck am I looking at?
Right.
Falls under that. Yeah.
Well, and one thing that I appreciate about you all is you have a great website with a lot of educational information on there. So we're definitely going to link to that so people can go on and see some of the educational information and resources that you all have posted there. William, talk about, how do you report your findings? You talked about the report, but what are some of the ways that you report your findings to the buyer?
The number one most important thing is they're on site. Now, we encourage the home buyer to be there start to finish, but we really want to make sure they're there at the very end of the inspection. And the reason that we do that, and I don't know what other inspectors in the area are doing, but to us, it's the most critical time. And so we've wrapped up the inspection. We've got 300 to 500 photos and videos that we've shot throughout the process. And we're basically we take those pictures, load them on our laptop, blow it up on the screen, and we start walking through those, having a conversation with that client about, what we've got, what the concerns are, what you might do to correct those problems. So that point in time, I think is the most critical educational part for that buyer. And the reason I say that is one-on-one, it's one-on-one with that inspector. You kind of get the personality between the two of them so you can gel and know how people communicate, that sort of thing. Versus just sending somebody a written report and they're reading this stuff, it's overwhelming. I mean, you get a report that's got 500 or 600 comments in it. You're like, oh crap, I'm gonna have to find another home without even looking at the report. You just assume automatically. So the verbal part of it is just really critical, because a lot of the stuff that ends up in that report are things that are required by the state for us to make comments on, whether it's good, bad, or ugly.
Yeah.
So written reports can be very overwhelming. So communication, I think, is key right there on site, if at all possible. As we do that review that I just spoke of on the laptop, we actually record that as a video, make it a private link on YouTube, and embed that in the inspection report. And I started doing that back before COVID, when people couldn't be there. Somebody's buying, out of state or whatever. And that video just, clears up so many questions. And then two, it stops a lot of callbacks and even from real estate agents as yourself. So, and what I mean by that is you get a buyer that's got cold feet. They're scared. They've changed their mind before the inspection. And now they're going to use the inspection as the excuse to book. And so they'll call the agent and say, well, my home inspector said the home's full of mold, it's growing in the walls, it's in the attic. And then I get the call from you saying, William, what the heck are you trying to do? And I'm like, buddy, I didn't say anything like that. Here's the video review that I did.
Right. Yeah.
So it proves to you that, that I didn't scare that client. Sadly, as in any industry, you've got the bad eggs out there. And the game is, hey, if I can scare you away from this home, if you're my client and I scare you away, I get paid and I've got no liability because you didn't buy the home, and you're going to hire me again because I saved you from some silly tragedy. So
right. Yeah.
I think that video helps the real estate agents as well to see the clarity that the inspector brings to that client.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the Southern Baptist in me almost hit you with an amen when you were talking about the in-person, because look, we get that call. It's like, hey, we just got the report. The house is going to explode at any moment. And then you go in and you look at the report, you watch the video, and you're like, oh no, that was just a loose doorknob. Your things are good here. So the in-person, we always encourage people, and we say, hey, follow the home inspector, give them their space, but go along with them. Your inspectors always do a great job of educating the people as they go. And attended a few, we're not supposed to, but I on occasion have showed up at the end, and I've heard the home inspector say, hey, I'm going to put this in the report. Just know, loose doorknob, couple of get you a good screwdriver, you're good to go. Things like that make the world of difference, as opposed to just, like you said, getting that report 20, 30 pages long and thinking that the house is going to fall down. So
that's exactly right. And when you're talking about what is and is not inspected, when we're talking about the standards of practice and whatever that we have to follow licensing laws, trying to educate the client on that as well is important. That, hey, I'm not gonna be able to move that couch. I'm not gonna be able to get in the attic because I got a Corvette parked under the access.
Right.
So again, that's very important. But other things that when you talk about what's included, I just want to make sure that I say a lot of that depends on the inspector that you hire, because again, we have recommendations that we are required to, not required to. So not required to walk a roof. And a lot of inspectors don't. I hired an inspector. Actually, he was a son-in-law, and didn't know until I got him out on site to train that the dude was afraid of heights, and getting on a roof is not his game. So that didn't work out so well. So you need to ask those, lifting the shingles to make sure you have underlayment under the shingles on the decking, not required. I get a lot of flack from local builders and what have you because I call those kind of things out, because other home inspectors aren't doing that. And I just try to put our company, put ourselves in the shoes of that buyer. Would you want to know this? Is it easy to do? Even though it's not required, pick up on the shingle. I mean, it's not a big deal. So again, knowing what you're after and questioning that inspector up front. Is he going to get in the crawl space if he can, or is he just going to open the door and take a picture?
Yeah.
Important stuff, because we're not required to.
Yeah. Well, William, you touched on something I want to ask you about. You said builders get on you. So that brings up the question of new construction. I have buyers that say, well, it's new, and the building code and the building inspectors looked at it. Why do I need to spend money on a new construction? And William, you say back to that.
Yeah. So I'll tell you right now, Mike, sadly, new construction and flip homes right now are probably the worst inspections we're going on. And new construction, it's not about money. It's about time. We got 15 homes on that same block. They're all sold. People are waiting to get them. So we cut corners, and we just find a lot of that. The other thing with new construction, it's not the builder's fault. He subs everything out. He's got an HVAC guy that comes in. He's got an electrician that comes in, and plumbers that come in, and right now that's something to deal with. Everybody's suffering for quality labor. So a great example, I just did one 3 days ago, brand new. It already had 3 or 4 inches of water in the basement. The drywall was mold covered, had to be yanked out. That was one of the concerns. The other thing is I'm looking at the HVAC system, completely finished, ready to fire up, although we didn't put a return vent in. All the ductwork's there, but we didn't run it back to the furnace. Now a buyer waives that home inspection, moves in there, doesn't know. Now they'll clean up the mold, that all look nice, but what about what's inside that wall? Is it going to come back the first time we get moisture? And then how long is it going to take that buyer to discover, hey, my furnace just isn't quite cutting it? And
right.
Get an HVAC guy. Now, typically with the builders, there's like a 1-year warranty or what have you. But the sad part about that is it usually takes a year or better before these kind of things start, showing up. So I just a new construction right now. I know a ton of people are waiving the inspections, and it's just so sad. Again, to go on that point, this guy bought a new construction, waived the inspection, he got job transfer, lives there a year, gets transferred somewhere else. So now I come in for a buyer to inspect this home. The HVAC guy forgot to put a condensate line on the furnace. So when I get down the basement, the whole bottom of that unit is completely rusted out. I got rust stains across the floor, where it's trying to make its way over to the floor drain. So now this buyer is stuck with who knows how much that's going to cost to rectify. Where if we just spent that $300 or $400 up front, he'd just save that back in a heartbeat to have that builder fixed in the first place.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Look, I tell people, are you willing to risk $300 to $400, $500 to save yourself from potentially thousands of dollars? Look, if you trust humans, builders are humans. And look, I love my builders. But like you said, they have subs, and everybody makes honest mistakes. They miss stuff. I make mistakes in my business, William. I would bet. Yeah, there you go. You're going to hit me back with an amen. So it's just that, look, get someone in there that's representing you to go through the house. If they find nothing, great. You're out a few $100, but you have that peace of mind of knowing
Absolutely.
I had somebody to look at it.
Absolutely.
Well, so home inspections, older homes, newer homes. We saw a report that came out last week, William. I don't know if you've seen this, but if not, I'll send it to you. The average age of a purchased home right now is 28 years old. That's up almost 15 years, 15 to 20 years over the last decade or so. So our houses are aging, and when I age, stuff breaks on me. Houses are the same, right? So the home inspection is becoming more and more important.
That's right. And to touch on that, the approach that the inspector takes on an older home like that is going to be quite different. The report is going to be quite different than it would be on new construction. One, because you're not holding it to today's standards. There are, this is where we run into hiccups with clients sometimes not understanding. And by that, I mean, I wouldn't walk into a 1970s built home and expect to find ground fault receptacles in that home. And it would be wrong of me to call that a defect, because the home wasn't built for that. Yeah. Now, would I say maintenance improvement and it needs to be upgraded? Sure, I would. Is the buyer then going to ask for that? And I try to walk them off that cliff, because you're asking for more than really you can ask. There's nothing stopping you. That's why you hired me. But you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot and kill your own deal. Yeah. Asking for a 1950. That's like I tell people, if you're looking for a car with built-in GPS, stop looking at 1957 Chevys. And it's the same way with homes. Same way.
Yeah. Well, he's William Troutman, Certainty Home Inspections. We're going to get a link to the website and all of their social medias. Like, if you're looking for education on home inspections, that's the place to go. William, just real quick, if they want to find you, to tell us the web address and where else they might be able to communicate.
Yeah, it's certaintyhomeinspections.com. Quick and easy to grab there, or Samantha's in the office almost always. The number's there as well, but it's 866-417-9591.
Awesome. William, thank you so much for serving the community in the way that you've done for all of these years, and taking care of the 812 Living Group clients as well.
Thank you. Keep up the good work, buddy.